Hello everyone and welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I'm Rainbow.
And Elizabeth Olsen is here today. Well, she's not here in the studio. That would be too exciting. But she is here in our article that we're going to be starting today and finishing off tomorrow. And I'm kind of excited about this one because Elizabeth Olsen is one of those actresses I've heard a lot about. I've seen her in some of the Marvel movies, right, in the Avenger movie. I thought she was good, but I can't really remember seeing her in anything else. So I'm kind of excited to talk about her and learn about her career, from the showbiz family that she comes from to some of her projects that will be coming up in the future. I think she's an actress to kind of watch for, to pay attention to.
I remember her in the most recent movie, Doctor Strange and the Universe of Madness.
Another Marvel movie.
She played Wanda, red-haired. She was beautiful. She played a mother.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I thought her acting was very powerful. And she stood out to me, even though I didn't really know her before, but I recognized her from that movie.
And did you know her from her famous family as well? Had you sort of heard of her before seeing her in the Marvel movies?
Only heard of Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Yeah, of course. Those are her older sisters. So that's another thing. I remember watching the sisters when they were tiny little kids on TV. Twins, that's right, and now their younger sister, Elizabeth Olsen, she is a famous actress in her own right. So let's check out Elizabeth Olsen growing up into a superhero, part 1. Should be interesting.
Elizabeth Olsen is now well known for her place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but she's not the biggest star in her family. She grew up in the shadow of two very popular child actors, twins Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Thanks to her sisters, she learned that fame comes at a price. Olsen started performing in films with her sisters when she was just 4, but their popularity scared her. She remembers them nearly getting into car accidents because the media kept following them around, and she almost gave up acting because of it.
All right, so let's get into our article, Elizabeth Olsen growing up into a superhero. So let's check it out, find out what we can learn about this young Hollywood actress. It says Elizabeth Olsen is now well known for her place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, to those who are big fans, but she's not the biggest star in her family. Actually, that's a really good point. We're going to find out about her famous siblings in a second. But it's true, she's well known from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the MCU, that's what we call that whole collection of movies, right? From the first Iron Man movies up to the Avengers and all the other spin-offs like Doctor Strange you mentioned. And that, of course, has made her a big star. Those movies are some of the most popular movies that have ever been released. But she's actually not the biggest star in her family. You would think that she was, but nope, that's not the case.
She grew up in the shadow of two very popular child actors. Now, these are from a while ago, so you may or may not have heard of them, but they were so popular when I was young. Twins Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. They're famous for their Full House series.
That's right. They were little kids, like really almost babies, right? On the Full House show, which I guess was on in the late 80s, early 90s, something like that. Of course, now her sisters are well known in the world of fashion. I don't think they make movies or TV shows much anymore.
But they have their own brand.
They're very famous, yeah.
So we're saying that Elizabeth Olsen grew up in the shadow of her sisters. So when you use it that way, in the shadow of someone, we have this word shadow. Shadow is when you're walking and if there's a light shining, then behind you can see yourself, that black thing on the ground, that shape of you. But if you're growing up in the shadow of someone, it means that that black light, that black thing is covering you. You can't see what's standing behind the person. And it just means that the sisters were so popular, so famous, the light was on them and they were so shiny, and the little sister was just in the background because no one knew who she was. So these are different ways to use shadow. I have a sentence for you. Lisa grew up in the shadow of her famous father. So again, we have this use. These words always go together, in the shadow of, and then that person. So that means people knew the father, but nobody knew who Lisa was. And maybe every single time someone talked to Lisa, they're like, I love your dad is so cool. And so she's like, well, I'm Lisa. No one knows who I am and nobody cares. So it's not very easy to grow up in the shadow of someone else, especially if they're very popular twins.
That's right. Having a famous mother, father, famous brother or sister, or even just coming from a famous family can put a lot of pressure on the kids, right? Everyone expects you to be as famous or as great as your older brother, your mom, or your dad. And it can be really difficult, especially, as you said, when the people you're growing up in the shadow of are not just your brother and sister, a few years older than you, not your parents, just your brother, your sisters here. And in this case, they were twin sisters. So basically, she grew up in the shadow, or she grew up with two really famous older sisters. And as we mentioned, they were twins. Now, twins is a form of brother and sister. Basically, these twins will be born at the same time from the same mother. When we think of twins, we often think of very special twins, identical twins, who look almost the same. And actually, Elizabeth Olsen's older sisters, Mary, Kate, and Ashley, are identical twins. And then we have more frequently what are known as fraternal twins. They don't look the same. It might actually be a boy and a girl. They don't really look similar, but they were born at the same time from the same mother. So that's why we would call them twins. Are there any twins in your family, brothers, sisters? Do you have any cousins who are twins?
My uncle on my dad's side's a twin.
Oh, okay. I don't think I have them in my family. It's kind of an unusual thing.
Unusual.
It's
cool.
It is kind of cool, especially if they look the same, although it can be hard to tell them apart. Anyways, let's get back to our word twins. We have this sentence for you. Nicole and Nadine are twins, and even their parents have trouble telling them apart. That would be these identical twins. They look almost like a mirror of each other.
Okay, so back to the article. Thanks to her sisters, she learned that fame comes at a price. Olsen started performing in films with her sisters when she was just 4, but their popularity scared her. Well, this must be really scary because when people meet the sisters, maybe they would be screaming and yelling and running ahead and trying to fight, and that's
grab them.
Grabbing them, and as kids, it's really scary. And just being a bit younger and watching your older sisters experience, that must be really scary too. She also sounds like maybe she's a bit shy compared to maybe her sisters. So she would be like, that's too many people, that's very scary, I'm too young.
Especially when she's so young.
Yeah. So we have this word here, perform. We're talking about how Elizabeth performed when she was very young. So when you perform, it means you act in something. Maybe you're an actress, maybe you're a dancer. You're doing something for other people. It could be on the stage, it could be on the screen, but this is something that you train for a long time, and you have to practice a lot and rehearse a lot. And when you give a performance, that's the noun form, that means people get to see a show. So it could be a show that's aired on TV. It could be a show, which means you playing in a movie or in a theater. I have a sentence for you. Alex has never performed in front of people before. So maybe Alex is a musician who loves to play the guitar at home, but he doesn't have the experience of playing in a live scene in front of a lot of people, and that could be scary.
That definitely could be scary. All right, back to the article. This is Elizabeth Olsen, the younger sister. She remembers them nearly getting into car accidents because the media kept following them around. And she almost gave up acting because of it. Wow, so that was one of those scary experiences she had when she was younger because her older sisters were so famous. I imagine they were at some, public event and they got in their car after waving and signing autographs and taking pictures. But the media, that would be photographers and TV crews,
news channels,
were kind of chasing them in their car trying to get pictures. This is what happened with Princess Diana, too.
That's so scary.
And it caused an accident. But you can imagine for the younger sister, all of this is going on. People are screaming, cameras are flashing, the car's driving away. It would be a little bit too much for a young kid to not be scared by that kind of experience. So let's take a break and find out how Elizabeth Olsen convinced herself to get back into show business after some of these early scary experiences.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。这一次要介绍的人物是在漫威电影里面饰演汪达绯红女巫的演员 Elizabeth Olsen， 伊丽莎白·欧森。那么欧森现在是好莱坞当红演员，不过呢，她并不是家族当中名气最大的明星哦。她的2个姐姐以前是非常受欢迎的双胞胎童星，从小就在姐姐们的光环下长大。那也因为他们的缘故呢，欧森了解到名气是有代价的。来看单字 shadow。它表示影子、阴影。当我们说 in the shadow of somebody， 表示在某人的阴影之下，在某人的光环下显得逊色的那种意思。那么下一个单字 twin 可以表达双胞胎的其中一个。这时候 Mike 老师有提到 identical twins， 就是同卵双胞胎。Fraternal twins 则是指异卵双胞胎。再来补充文中的 Marvel Cinematic Universe 是漫威电影宇宙，这是指说根据漫威漫画拍摄的电影所建构出来的世界，就常常会用 MCU 来表示。而这时候 Mike 老师他有用到 spin off，SPIN 连字号 OFF，spin off 这个名词就表示延伸作品、副产品或者是衍生物。好，那么欧森4岁呢，就开始跟姐姐们在电影当中演出，但姐姐们的人气让他感到畏惧，很害怕。相信当时一定有非常多的粉丝跟他们要签名。那么欧森则记得姐姐们差点出车祸，因为媒体一直跟踪他们，那他差点因为这件事情就放弃表演了。补充一下 autograph 这个字 ，AUTOGRAPH。autograph 它表示亲笔签名，名人的亲笔签名。再来看单字 perform， 它是动词，是指表演演出。那它的名词是 performance， 就是表演演出或是表现。Rainbow 老师则提到 rehearse 这个动词 ，rehearse，rehearse 这个动词就是排练、排演。那这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看这个重点是 thanks to 和 because of 是表达由于、因为，这两者都是表达原因的片语介系词，那么之后都可以接名词或者是动名词，只是要注意说 thanks to 常常用来指正面的原因，例如 we had to cancel the picnic because of the rain， 因为下雨的关系，我们必须取消野餐了。那再看个例句是 thanks to your help，I was able to solve the problem successfully。多亏了你的帮忙，我才能顺利解决问题。所以这边 thanks to your help 就是多亏你的帮忙，谢谢，因为有你的帮忙。那我们接着回到课文中。
She also considered changing her name so people wouldn't compare her with them. However, in the end, she did neither of these things and focused on studying acting more seriously instead. The young actor wanted to avoid what her sisters went through, so she chose not to start her professional career until she was an adult. She studied theater at New York University and started performing in plays in 2008. In 2011, she starred in her first film. Her performance earned her several award nominations.
So, welcome back. We were just learning about how even though she's from a famous show business family, Elizabeth Olsen wasn't sure that the life of a celebrity was for her, right?
Yeah, in the article it says she also considered changing her name so people wouldn't compare her with them, with her sisters. However, in the end, she did neither of these things and focused on studying acting more seriously instead. And I think that's because Mary-Kate and Ashley ended up doing fashion. So maybe she felt like she had a thing of her own to do, and they were already older, and the Olsen twins weren't the famous little kids anymore.
Yeah, it's a good point. As her sisters moved out of fashion, show business to become more involved in the fashion world, people probably compared Elizabeth Olsen to her older sisters less and less because they weren't known as actresses so much anymore. When we compare things, this verb means we take two things that are similar but not exactly the same, and we kind of put them next to each other, look at how they're different.
This is good, this is not so good.
If you're buying things, you might compare them on what you
Prices.
like, what you don't like, what the price is, what the quality is, and this is how we come up with decisions. This is how we choose and decide between two or three things. You could just cover your eyes and pick one, but if you're smart, you'll compare them and see which one works, which one's better, that kind of thing. But the act of putting them next to each other to see how they're different and how they're good or bad next to each other, that is to compare. For example, the article compares traffic in Taipei with traffic in Kaohsiung. All right, because they're similar but different, so we're looking at how they're similar and different. So she thought of changing her last name. I know that there are some actors and actresses who do that, right? I think Nicolas Cage, his last name is really Coppola, like his famous uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, the famous director. But he said, no, I don't want to get a job because of my famous uncle or my famous family. I'll change my name. But Elizabeth Olsen, she didn't do that eventually. And then we read, the young actor wanted to avoid what her sisters went through. So she chose not to start her professional career until she was an adult. Oh, okay, interesting.
Smart.
Yeah, being a child.
She's more mature, you know.
That's a good point. Yeah, being a child actor can bring a lot of pressure, can make growing up in a normal way kind of impossible. So she decided to start her career as an adult, as an older person.
That's right. And the career is something that you choose to do for a very long time in your adult life. So it's something that you're professional at, you're very good at, and you can climb up in. So in Elizabeth's case, her career is her acting career. So we might observe the differences between earlier and later movies when we talk about an actor's career. We can also have other careers, such as a doctor's career, maybe beginning, they do some volunteering, they went to one hospital, they moved across the country. So a career is a long time of being in a job or a profession, and where you can observe growing and getting better at it. You might become just a junior person to becoming a salesperson to a manager, and maybe eventually you become a boss. That would be a journey in your career. I have a sentence for you. Lucy would like to have a career in business. She wants to focus on this for a long time in her life and to get better at it.
Okay, so that will be the big part of her working life.
Exactly.
Her career. Okay.
So Elizabeth Olsen, we continue. She studied theater at New York University and started performing in plays in 2008. In 2011, she starred in her first film. Her performance earned her several award nominations. So New York University, we know, is NYU, that's in New York in America, and there's a great acting school there. And 2011 was a long time ago, but exactly when she did her first few shows, she was nominated. So that's really good for Elizabeth.
That is pretty good. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today, but we'll have more about Elizabeth Olsen tomorrow, including some of the things she has for us now and in the near future. So if you're a fan, or if you just want to learn something interesting, come on back and join us. Bye.
姐姐们的人气可能让欧森犹豫要不要踏上名人之路。课文就提到说，他有考虑过要改名，这样人们就不会拿他跟姐姐们做比较。不过呢，最后他并没有这么做，反而是专注于认真学习表演。那他想避免姐姐经历的事，所以选择成年后才开始职业生涯。好，我们来看单字 compare。这个动词就有比较、对比的意思。那么 career 表示职业、事业，通常是指长期从事的职业。Mike 老师则用到 celebrity，C-E-L-E-B-R-I-T-Y，celebrity 就是名人，这通常是指影艺界的名人或是社交名流。那这边两个重点，我们要进入文法时间。 好，我们来看第一个重点是复合关系代名词 what 的用法。What 当复合关系代名词的时候，它相当于 the thing that 或者是 the things that。那它所引导的名词子句呢，可以当主词、受词或是补语用。特别注意，当主词的话，你要把这个名词子句视为单数，然后去搭配单数动词哦。例如 ，What he did was very honorable。他所做的事很值得尊敬。这时候这个 what he did 就是名词子句，那它相当于 the thing that he did。那这个名词子句当主词用，要视为单数，所以后面才会搭配单数动词 was。第二个重点则是 go through 的常见用法。第一种，我们可以用 go through 去表达经历、体验，这通常是指可能辛苦或不好的经验，那么会跟 experience 意思差不多。举例来说 ，Dave and his family are going through a painful time。Dave 和他的家人正在经历一段艰苦的时期。好，那么第二个用法是用 go through 去表达仔细检查、查看或是翻找。例如 ，She went through the contract line by line。她一行一行的仔细检查合约。好，那么以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Elizabeth Olsen is now well known for her place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but she's not the biggest star in her family. She grew up in the shadow of two very popular child actors, twins Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Thanks to her sisters, she learned that fame comes at a price. Olsen started performing in films with her sisters when she was just 4, but their popularity scared her. She remembers them nearly getting into car accidents because the media kept following them around, and she almost gave up acting because of it. She also considered changing her name so people wouldn't compare her with them. However, in the end, she did neither of these things and focused on studying acting more seriously instead. The young actor wanted to avoid what her sisters went through, so she chose not to start her professional career until she was an adult. She studied theater at New York University and started performing in plays in 2008. In 2011, she starred in her first film. Her performance earned her several award nominations.
Yangmingshan National Park is about 11,000 hectares in size. It covers a large portion of northern Taiwan. The mountainous park is located in both Taipei and New Taipei City. The park's mountainous geography was formed from volcanic activity long ago. Yangmingshan has a mild, humid climate due to its northern Taiwan location and high altitude. Because of its volcanic origin, there are several hot springs in the park. In the fall, the park is famous for the silvergrass plant that grows on the mountain slopes. In the spring, visitors come to see cherry blossoms and azaleas in bloom. Many historic buildings and trails are throughout the park. In these buildings, visitors can learn about the history of Yangmingshan. Escape the hustle of the city by exploring the beautiful nature of Yangmingshan National Park.
See you next time!